for their mentorship. It is ironic that our committee stands on the verge of a significant bipartisan breakthrough at this time. Perhaps our work can inspire some much-needed reasonableness and compromise in these halls in the hours, days, and weeks to come. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to continue to reserve at this time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I mentioned before Ms. Frankel had worked very hard, and we incorporated some of her work into this bill as well. So I'd like to recognize Ms. Frankel of Florida for 2 minutes.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Mr. Speaker, this is a very good example of what happens when colleagues work together. I want to thank Mr. Royce and Mr. Engel very much for including in this legislation a language from a bipartisan bill sponsored by myself and my colleague, Mr. Trey Riddell, also from Florida. And this particular provision would authorize the State Department to use the best value contracting award method in high-risk, high-threat areas around the world, ensuring the safety of American men and women serving our country abroad. And with this bipartisan effort, the State Department will be allowed to consider factors beyond only price in making security contracts, giving the State Department the flexibility and tools they need to keep those who serve us abroad safe from harm and ensures taxpayer money is being used effectively. Mr. Speaker, the attack on our embassy in Benghazi was a tragic reminder of the security environment in which many of our diplomats serve. And it is our responsibility here in Congress to do everything in our power to protect Americans in our embassies overseas. Again, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to Mr. Royce and Mr. Engel for your good work. I yield the rest of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to continue to reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
It's my pleasure now to call upon a former member of our committee, Ms. Jackson Lee of Texas, for 2 minutes.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for the great work on an issue that so many of us have noted and advocated for over the years. As a former member of this committee during the time of the Democratic majority, I still continue to have a great sense of the importance of the work. And having traveled to a number of countries and engaged with our diplomatic staff and the State Department, let me put on the record of the crucial work that our diplomatic corps, our diplomatic staff, the staff of the State Department, the Secretary of State, does and is engaged in for the safety and security of the American people. Their work is vital. They are partners with the defense, but more importantly, they're partners for reconciliation and coming together. It is evident by their great work where we are in Syria along with the President, and of course most recently some of the outreach that is going on with Iran. But my main point for speaking today is having physically visited a number of the diplomatic sites in high-risk and high-threat posts. I'm ecstatic about this legislation that provides a matrix along with working groups for security measures and funding, along with a review of the diplomatic security, the support of the National Endowment for Democracy, which when I went to oversee the Algerian election, they were very much involved, as they are and as they were in Egypt and as they were in many other places where there are difficult circumstances. And then, of course, to be able to enhance security for the diplomatic staff and security, to protect the civilian but also the military. Our Marines are very able, as those who are there at posts. They provide enhanced security for those particular posts. Let me conclude and give 30 seconds.
I yield the gentlelady another minute.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you so very much. One of the things that I am most excited about, and I thank the author of the amendment, and that is the issue of best value for security. That is a crucial bipartisan agreement that makes common sense, and that on the security of our men and women who leave these shores and to be instruments of peace, diplomatic engagement, and be the face of the American people in very difficult posts, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, whether it may be Egypt, whether it may be Pakistan, and other places beyond, that it is our duty to ensure that the posts that they're in has the highest level of security quality, both from technology and also from the physical bricks and mortar. And so I rise today because I wanted to first acknowledge the valiant service of all of those who have served, and I also want to make note of those who we've lost, who have served in the diplomatic corps in places far beyond our borders, and to thank them and thank those who serve in the State Department and who are serving as we speak, and the United States Marines who across the nation, across the world, secure these very valiant public servants. With that, I support the legislation. I thank you, and I yield back my time.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Well, I would say, Mr. Speaker, I just wish to reserve my right to close.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume to conclude. I again would, thank you. I again would like to thank Chairman Royce for his efforts in putting this bill together. I have a copy of the bill in front of me. It's H.R. 2848, and it says in the House of Representatives, introduced July 30th, Mr. Royce for himself and Mr. Engel introduced the following bill, which is referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs. I read that because I think, again, it highlights, as so many of our colleagues have said, that this bill is really Congress at its best and the committee at its best. People had concerns. We worked together. We thrashed them out. We put together a product that those people who are most concerned with this were able to agree. And I hope that will be infectious, and perhaps we can take it out of our committee and move it to the Congress on other things that we're not having so much agreement with these days. But I again want to thank Chairman Royce. The state authorization and embassy security bill is a very, very important part of our oversight of the State Department. And the bill will bolster the State Department's security efforts, and who really can oppose that? So I urge its passage. I thank the Chairman again, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank Mr. Engel. And I would point out again that in the past, State Department authorization bills that have passed the House, even under suspension, have failed due to inaction in the other body. And now, because of the strong bicameral interest in embassy security, we have an opportunity to break this bad habit and return to our core responsibility. Congressman Engel from New York and myself have discussed these issues not only with our members but with members of the Senate. And if enacted, this bill, of course, will only be the fourth time in the last 17 years that Congress has passed a State Department authorization. And we need to seize this opportunity to move meaningful legislation at a time when members in this body and in the Senate understand that this is a chance to direct this issue of embassy security and provide that additional security. I very much want to express my appreciation for the collaboration I've had with Mr. Engel, with our ranking member, on this piece of legislation. This is a bipartisan bill, as he's shared with you. Together, we have worked to incorporate the ideas of the members of our committee. A large number of those committee members have offered amendments that are in this legislation. So to conclude, I would point out that 2848 is a strongly bipartisan measure. It is fiscally responsible. It is constructive in its reforms. It is deliberate in its efforts to keep our personnel stationed overseas as safe as we can keep them. And I thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 2848 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Request the ayes and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the House will stand in recess, subject to the call of the Chair.
And working on bills under the suspension of the rules, one dealing with medical compounding centers and a meningitis outbreak, and an appropriations bill on embassy security. As for the bill funding the government, Republicans met earlier to try to work out how to move forward on that. The Rules Committee may meet at some point to work on that bill, and we could see a few things in the new House version, including a one-year delay of the health care law and a repeal of the medical device tax, which helps to fund the health care law. We could also see a separate bill come out of the House to ensure U.S. troops get paid in case the government shuts down on Monday midnight. That all according to Politico. And just a recap of the situation yesterday. The Senate passed its funding bill. It scaled back the funding to mid-November, and it also got rid of the language that would have defunded the health care law. Now, as far as the possible new bill from the House, Politico reports Senate Democrats will reject it in order to pressure House Republicans to approve the Senate's plan. One Senate Democratic aide said, "We are not discussing extensions. The only way out of this is for the House to pass our clean continuing resolution." A second aide said a one-year delay will not pass the Senate, and the House knows it. The Senate not scheduled back in until Monday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And the Republicans, they met earlier, but the House